I'm overwhelmed by my choices when it comes to picking out shows and movies to watch. What is the golden age that we are living in? Remote work. We got it during the pandemic and now we need to make it the norm. The ability to make good money and live anywhere is a luxury that was hard to imagine just 10 years ago. Businesses that harness remote work will outperform office-centric businesses. Imagine all the capital that can go towards expanding the business instead of towards real estate. And you save on HR troubles. No chance of workplace drama. The ease of listening to music is pretty incredible right now. I have several friends who are a decade my junior. It is a gigantic generational gap. When I was growing up, you either had to buy a CD or pirate songs off of LimeWire or torrents or trade CDs with friends and rip them. But these people grew up post-Spotify. The access to basically all the music ever made with no actual effort is so wild to me, but so normal to them. Somebody replied, "What's most incredible to me is how this change didn't even happen gradually." A few years ago, I had been digitizing all my CDs and cleaning up my MP3 collection for about 2 weeks. One night, I was planning out the music system for my place, cantered around a Raspberry Pi. The software not only allowed local streaming but also had Spotify integration. I had heard of it before, so I decided to give it a try. My entire local music collection, my entire workflow to buy or torrent music and sort it all became obsolete almost literally overnight. Entertainment. There is so much of it that no one could ever do, play, or watch everything. It serves no other purpose than to entertain a person. On my PS5, I can play almost every game released for every generation of it. Give me Midnight Club 3 Dub Edition, damn it. My phone plan has Hulu and Disney along with my Netflix sub. And my mom has Spotify that I use. YouTube as well. Anything else I'll take to the high seas for. Everything I want entertainment-wise is just a few taps away. It's flat out amazing and sometimes I can't believe it. It's weird to think we truly live in the future, when it's just the norm now. Just tonight I watched a film and Game 7 at the same time while casually farming Elden Ring during breaks and entrances. Somebody replied, "My Steam library agrees. It's so bad that I get excited when I run across a short indie game that I can actually finish in under 10 hours. The worst is picking up a game that you got pretty far in before you got distracted by another one, not remembering how anything works, so you start over. Only to get distracted again." Beer. Amazing microbreweries have proliferated over the past 25 years in the US. Sometimes I get choice paralysis at my local liquor store. I remember, and then try to forget, a time when your options at a bar included Bud, Miller, and Coors, and the most exotic beer you'd find at the supermarket was Keystone Light Ice. I went to a pub with friends this weekend and one got indignant that they only had 10 beers and 3 ciders on tap. And this pub wasn't even trying to be craft. On the other hand, this trend has introduced a whole new group of insufferable beer snobs to the world. When craft beer was really gaining popularity 15 to 20 years ago, I thought it was just a fad. Now there's even more. Craft beer has really become a new norm of US culture, and allowed so many other interesting things to come along for the ride. A good place for food trucks to set up, dog-friendly bars, small venues for local musicians. It's really cool how this is happening in every American city. Artistic creation. I, a musician born in the early 1970s, am constantly astounded by how cheap and easy it is to record and release high-quality music. Not just musical either. Digital art is wildly accessible to both creators and audiences. I do 3D printing, and regularly chat with sculptors from around the world. Everywhere from within driving distance of me in North America, to people in Brazil, in Europe, etc. Their content is incredibly easy to get out and share with other people due to a number of platforms, and for me it can be as simple as downloading the files, heating up my printer, and a few hours later I could be holding something designed on the other side of the world. Learning to draw is more accessible than it's ever been. Back in the 90s, any kid who had an interest in drawing picked up those how to draw X books that showed you how to draw circles and draw things in very specific ways. Nowadays you can open YouTube and find thousands of tutorials teaching the basics of anatomy all the way up to how to incorporate different styles into your art. The relationship between phones and depression is now clear. This is nothing new. In 1964, in Understanding Media, McLuhan noted that the phrase "all alone by the telephone" invoked a particularly modern dread. There you are, in a room with your landline, and it's connected to every single one of the roughly 1 billion other phones in the world. A billion people out there, and not one of them calls. A billion people out there, and not one of them to call. Today, the problem is approximately 5 times worse. Entertainment is wild. I'm overwhelmed by my choices when it comes to picking out shows and movies to watch, music to listen to, fashion and other trends to follow. It's definitely unsustainable, though. I am a 61-year-old teacher. I was a kid in the late 1960s and 1970s. If you wanted to see The Wizard of Oz, for example, you had to wait a year and then be in front of your 3-channel TV at exactly the time it came on a network broadcast. I used to wish that there could be some way to watch that movie, and others, more often than that. If you missed an episode of your favorite sitcom? Too bad, so sad. I was telling my students this truth about a year ago. They either laughed really hard or accused me of just making it up. It was absolutely beyond their comprehension that my words could be true. Somebody replied, "This is how it was in my small town in the 1980s. We were too poor to get a VCR. Technically, we got 4 channels, but one was the exact same programming as another, just with different news, 2 different ABC affiliates. We could get PBS if the weather was just right, but we had to go outside to turn the antenna. I think that's why a lot of older sitcoms had very little continuity. You'd get a special 2-parter every now and then, but it was rare that you'd have a season-long arc of things. Now you can get a lot of shows with season or even series-long arcs. It's amazing but also a little scary how addicted we are to entertainment. So many of my high schoolers seem emotionally numb and become so agitated and distressed when they are away from some form of entertainment for too long. Board games. I never knew how many amazing board games there were until my co-worker took me to a board game cafe. I thought maybe she was just a huge fan of like Monopoly or some shit. Not even close. It was only like $10 to play as many games as you wanted for as long as you wanted. They had multiple huge bookshelves full of games. Hundreds of games, easily. Funny enough, they did not actually have Monopoly, said it causes too many fights. Can't argue there. There's every kind of game you could possibly imagine, and many that you couldn't even imagine. Simple games, intricate complex games. Crazy games. Weird games. Stupid games. Many had extremely robust storylines which made them super engaging. Probably the most fun I've ever had playing board games. There was something for everyone, whether you like farming or highways. The assortment was insane. I never knew this world existed, but am so glad I know now. Shit is way too much fun. Photography. Now, almost everyone has a camera, usually in their phone. And they are so simple to use it's easy to take decent photos. You don't have to worry about changing film rolls or different exposure settings. Use up a 48 exposure roll? You'll have to stop and put in a new roll. I remember those days. The insidious thing about that is, you are always second-guessing yourself, saying is a picture of this, whatever, worth using up part of my finite film supply. The great thing about digital is you just take multiple pics of everything, like only the pros at a football game with a bottomless film bag and an assistant reloading the next camera could afford to do back in the 80s. If you want to use up a 48 exposure roll. Somebody replied, I spent a long time taking 35mm photos, mostly using slide film, and the hardest adaptation I had to make was nearly unlimited photo storage. I was so used to the old approach, is this photo worth the money and the space it takes up before I have to reload? How many rolls do I have with me? What aspect ratio is my film, and how is it going to look in the light I have available? I have to keep reminding myself with my digital cameras, how much does it cost to take this photo? Nothing, that's how much it costs. If you have the slightest impulse to take a picture, just fucking take it, costs zero, you can always delete it later. I would say that cleanliness has improved since past ages, but something about the golden age of showers doesn't seem right. According to the guy on the Antiques Roadshow, only 1% of homes had running water at the beginning of the 20th century. So, a little more than 100 years ago, it was a true luxury to have a shower in your home. This is the golden age for scammers. My mother's friend sent someone $5,000 in gift cards a couple weeks ago. People tried to talk some sense into her, but she was convinced Microsoft needed to be paid in gift cards. Somebody replied, "Most stores I know of won't even sell you more than $500 in gift cards anymore, and if they do, the head manager has to come out and complete the sale so they know your face and can prevent scams like this." Astronomy. We exist for a brief moment in cosmological time where we can see other galaxies and get a sense of the huge scale of the universe. In the future, space will expand too fast for the light of distant galaxies or the afterglow of the Big Bang to reach us. Intelligent life living billions of years in the future will think they live alone in a small, empty universe. There will be little to no evidence of the countless galaxies, clusters, superclusters, etc. that exist outside their observable universe. I find this incredibly sad. A thought Neil deGrasse Tyson infected me with is, what information has already been lost to us forever? Combustion engines. They are at their most efficient when pushed towards hybrids and electric vehicles, and the rising cost of fuel. Factory-delivered 4-cylinder, 2-liter engines are over 400 horsepower now. With a warranty, they still do 40 mpg. So I think we're in the golden age of the combustion engine, which will be slow and drawn out, giving way to the new age of electronic, hybrid, and perhaps even hydrogen-powered vehicles. I feel like emission standards and targets are one of the biggest reasons for the great efficiency. Mainly the EU's emission targets, which change often to be lower and cause actual big fines per car sold if you're over the targets. The rate of the drop in emissions per km driven significantly increased from around 2005 to 2020 or so because manufacturers had strict 2020 targets to reach. The next target is another 15% drop by 2025, but that's a very easy target because EVs will bring the average down by that much without combustion engine cars changing at all. New targets are pointless if non-EVs won't be sold after 2030. The golden age of misinformation and sensory overload is now. Never before had humans had to deal with so much information thrown at them. Every time you put effort into discrediting a piece of information as fake, 10 times the amount gets thrown at you again before you finish. No matter how much effort you put into sorting truth from fake, you will never keep up until at some point you either give up and accept information as is or withdraw from letting information reach you. Probably older than most of Reddit. I remember being so optimistic about the internet and that people would seek truth, academic papers, and books available to everyone if they looked hard enough. Nope, everyone isolates themselves into echo chambers. For example, the American Civil War, some people calling the war of northern aggression or the myth that it was about states' rights. The primary documents are available for free. I show them to people and get ignored or outright harassed. I sometimes feel like a Luddite. If I could poof the internet away with a button, I just might. Subscribe to the channel to help me bring about the golden age of Reddit YouTube videos.